Good evening and welcome to the December 9th meeting of the Civil Service Commission. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Manukian.
Here.
Commissioner Abkarian.
Here.
Commissioner Gazarian.
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Yakubian is absent.
And Commissioner Devine is here.
And Chair Devine.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Minutes for the meeting of October 28, 2015.
Move to approve. I think I need to abstain on that. Oh, no, I was here. No. Okay, so I got to abstain.
Second.
Okay, that's unanimous consent. With one abstention. Okay. Next item, please.
For the record, Commissioner Yakubian has joined us. Item 3, oral communications.
Okay. I have no cards. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the Commission on items not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, please.
Recruitment and examination report.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is our recruitment and examination status report. Just illustrates the workload of the staff on their recruitments. It addresses each recruitment, staff member, dates of exams. Right now it's a total of 53 in various stages, up a bit from before, but it's more or less routine for this time of the year. This is a note and file item. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, please.
Eligible list established.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a note and file as well. It's an illustration of the eligible lists that have been established since our last meeting. As you can see, we have a total of 10 on this list. 6 of them are promotional. 1 of them is an open. We have 2 that are promotional and open, and then there's 1 reinstatement list. If you'll recall from the previous meeting, we had reinstated an individual to a list, the this assistant parking manager. If you have questions on these, be happy to try and answer them, but this is a note and file item.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Presentation of Glendale Supervisory Academy and Glendale Leadership Academy, class of 2015.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is something we bring to the Commission each year around this time to describe 2 programs that we have run out of our Human Resources Department. One is the Glendale Supervisory Academy, the other is the Glendale Leadership Academy. And these are programs where departments nominate individuals and provide them with the opportunity to acquire supervisory, leadership knowledge and information. And it's a year-long program. Starts, the Supervisory Academy begins around February of each year and concludes in November. Has about 11 classes that the attendees attend. And the Glendale Leadership Academy is something we do in cooperation with Woodbury University. And really, both of these programs are designed to really focus on the up-and-coming stars in our organization and preparing ourselves for the future in our succession planning efforts. And it's a real serious investment that we make in this, because as we see employees retire and leave the organization, we want to make sure that we're prepared for the next generation of leaders. Just this afternoon, we had the graduation ceremony for each of these 2 groups, and as you can see on the board, we have some pictures of the individuals who participated. We always invite those individuals here tonight to be recognized by the Commission, and they are here. Perhaps they could each come up one by one and just introduce themselves, and the Commission wants to say a few words, that would be nice. But it's a great program, and really it's an honor for these folks to have been selected and to have completed this program each year. So.
Very good. Well, thank you. Let's have everyone involved. If you could come up and form a line in the interest of time, and then introduce yourself one by one. So all of you from the Leadership and Supervisory Academy.
Look who's first in line.
Boy, I was going to say, Angela, congratulations.
Chair, members of the Commission, Angela Abramian with Human Resources, and I completed the Glendale Supervisory Academy.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
excellent job.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Halpert from Fire Department, also Glendale Supervisory Academy.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Yvette Nukin. I'm from the City Attorney's Office, and I completed the Glendale Leadership Academy.
Excellent. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Mona Reeves from the City Attorney's Office, and I completed the Glendale Supervisory Academy.
Excellent. Congratulations to you.
Good evening, Mansour Quera from Information Services. I just completed the Supervisory Academy. Thank you.
You're the one that always solves my IT problems, I remember. Congratulations. Thank you, Mansour.
Get an award just for that.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Damian Patrick from Information Services as well. I completed the Leadership Academy.
Thank you. Congratulations to you.
Good evening. My name is Irene Stein, Community Services and Parks, and I completed the Leadership Academy.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sabah Garabidin, Community Services and Parks Department, and I finished the Glendale Leadership Academy.
Great.
Congratulations.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gordon Arnold from Information Services. I'm a recent graduate of the Glendale Supervisory Academy.
Congratulations.
With all these information services people, Brian better look out for his job. He's got a lot of competition coming up the line.
Good evening. My name is Chris Gill. I'm with the Public Works Engineering and just completed the Glendale Leadership Academy.
Great. Thank you. No, don't tell me Steve made it.
There's some stuff we didn't. Steve Nerzation, City of Glendale Human Resources, just completed the Leadership Academy. Thanks for having us here.
Great. Steve, could you tell us the difference, or at least myself, between the leadership and the supervision? What are the different curriculums involved?
You missed that day of class.
Certainly. Folks such as myself, initially, I think were chosen or selected by our departments to go through the supervisory training, which is about 11 courses done internally. Matter of fact, my department head, Matt Doyle, teaches 3 of the classes. It's a variety of supervisory courses, anything from how to do performance evaluation, etc. Now, the Leadership Academy, it's the advanced level. As Matt mentioned, hopefully the futures of the organization, such as myself. Although I've been here 21 years, so anyhow, the Leadership Academy, it's a joint program with Woodbury University. It's more intensive, I think. Departments go through vigorous steps in identifying folks, and it's 4 hours. I'm trying to recall the sessions, 6 to 8 sessions. So it's a joint program. You gain a lot. For me personally, I like to share that the most I got is the people that I was in the class with. You meet people from different departments. You share ideas. You get to know people. So it was very, very helpful.
Well, this was actually a test, Steve, and you passed, so you get your certificate. The bad news is Matt's going to be here another 40 years, so don't look to his job for right now. So, okay.
Fine with that.
Talk to Russ. He'll tell you all about it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it. Any comments from the commissioners?
Congratulations, by the way, to all of you.
Matt, just a quick question. Now, in the when some of these people go through this, have a certificate or something that they finish this, is that something that we add on the internal departmental supervisory? Is this something that we actually say leadership, if you finish leadership program that's desirable or required or anything like that? Because, you know, some people put in the time, some people don't put in the time. The people who put in the time should be somehow rewarded when there's a interdepartmental management position for them. And going through the program should give you a leg up, not just a leg down, or not a same playing level. So I think that at some point, if there is a bulletin out, I think that bulletin should also say if you have a supervisory leadership program or academy that's desirable or is required or something to that effect. So these folks here that have actually spent the time, went through the program, would actually get a leg up over somebody who decided I'm not going to go through 11 programs and spend my nights or weekends or whatever it takes to do it.
It's a great idea.
My question, Matt, is, Sir Doyle, how do we go about, how does the city go about selecting those who have participated in the leadership and supervisory academies? Is it by application from the civil servants, or is it by selection from the various department heads as to who ought to attend? And last, once that, if it's a selection as opposed to an application, what's the ratio of those who are selected compared to those who accept the distinction of being selected and attend?
Great questions. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the individuals are nominated by their department heads, and it's a very intense effort that put out, and there's some, I would say, prerequisites for the Leadership Academy and as well as the Supervisory Academy. Supervisory Academy, we want somebody to be either a lead worker or someone who has the potential or someone who's mid-manager to be selected. If for the Leadership Academy, they would either have to be an upper manager or someone who has completed the Supervisory Academy. But this is completely done by nomination by the department head, and that's where it gets a little tricky, a little challenging. The department head really has to look at those who have outstanding potential for leadership, and this is something the city manager really makes clear to us as department heads that we need to be training our replacements, and it's something that we discuss all the time amongst the executive team, very openly. And again, the individuals selected are, it is quite an honor to be recognized in that fashion. And as far as the second part of your question, those who are nominated, almost 100% of them accept the nomination. There's only some rare cases where there are either scheduling difficulties or something along those lines. I will say the classes are done during work hours, so it isn't done outside of work. We might have some issues with overtime if that were the case, but it is a hardship because these folks are all really busy. I mean, you all know the reductions we've had in this organization. Everybody's working harder, doing more with less resources, and to take a half a day or a full day once every couple of weeks to participate in something like this, it's a bit of a hardship. And some of our public safety folks, the people who work 24/7, police officers, fire dispatchers, people like that, they do come in on during off time, or they may have worked a graveyard shift and they'll come in and participate in the program. And it's it can be a bit of a hardship from that standpoint. But again, it's viewed as a real positive and an honor to be selected. And Commissioner Abkarian, your idea about incorporating this into pre-qualifications for promotion it's a great idea. It's not something we've specifically put on our job descriptions, but certainly those who apply for promotions are always happy to list that as something that they've accomplished or achieved, just along with their college degree or certification or whatever it is that particular job.
Assuming they were invited to
yes.
take part, obviously.
Yes.
So we have to be mindful of the fact that perhaps when each round of these academies are offered, certain civil servants are identified as worthy or qualified or good candidates, but when a promotion comes up, perhaps some months later, during that interim period, someone distinguishes herself or himself. So the fact that they are not a graduate of one of these academies ought not be held against them or be determined to be one less factor in their favor, perhaps. It's a tough call. Thank you.
Any other comments? Once again, congratulations to all of you, and we appreciate it, and the city of Glendale appreciates that you take the time and effort to want to succeed and make the city a better place. So thank you all very, very much. Okay. Mr. Doyle, or next item, please.
Class specification for approval and job bulletin for approval, firefighter recruit.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a specification for approval. It's a revision, as well as the request authorization for bulletin for firefighter recruit. Just after the new year, we anticipate opening our fire recruit process. This is always a very challenging exam because it's really largely due to the quantity of candidates that we see. This past year, we had a series of meetings involving the HR department, fire management, and our Firefighters Association on some means designed to improve the various aspects of the hiring process, as well as department staffing as a whole within the fire department. And there were some very unique and creative ideas that were put forth for working smarter and really getting the most out of our staff, as well as the saving money. We came to the conclusion, and if you look at the statistics as far as what the fire department actually does, is that really their biggest service level need is in the area of EMS, emergency medical services. Probably 80% of their calls, or even higher, are related to that. And I think the focus on our next hiring process, as well as really our hiring for the near future, would be trying to get candidates that will best meet that need, and sort of reorganizing the process to incorporate paramedic schooling within the firefighter recruit process at an earlier stage. And I'll kind of explain what is done right now. We have, in the past, we hire individuals as firefighter recruits. They go through an academy. It's approximately 4 to 5 months, and they learn basically firefighting, emergency medical service, a lot of schoolwork, a lot of physical work. They graduate and they become firefighters, and they serve as firefighters for an entire 1-year probationary period. When we're looking to make these individuals paramedics, usually it's done a few years down the road once they're already firefighters, and we then put them into paramedic school. And it's a 6-month, paramedic school takes 6 months. And the way we do it now, we take a firefighter off the line, send them to paramedic school, and because we're doing that, we have to backfill their position in the fire department, and it creates a big overtime cost. What we're proposing to do is change that process and hire individuals as firefighter recruits, send them through that academy, and then while they're still firefighter recruits, send them to paramedic school as firefighter recruits. That way we don't have to take trained firefighters off the line and incur all of the overtime expenses. So that's kind of the big change here, is that we're requiring some EMS experience prior to the application for a firefighter recruit. The other thing is we do hope, along with the traditional firefighter recruit process, we want to run a parallel recruit process for paramedics. And on that bulletin, so we would have 2 bulletins, one for firefighter recruit and one for fire recruit / paramedic, where we would actually seek to attract people who are already paramedics, who already have that paramedic license, and really focus on meeting our emergency medical service needs. Again, the revision to the class spec has to do with the issue of the EMS service and the greater emphasis on paramedic training, and the bulletins that we hope to post on the new year would address those needs, both with 2 separate bulletins. And if I could perhaps have maybe Chief Fish come up and say a little more about that, what we're doing today.
I just have one question before we get to that. I don't see the bulletin here for the firefighter recruit. So is that something that's in the works, or?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is really a collaborative effort by the city and the GFFA, the Firefighters Association, to bring about a more effective way of recruiting people. So currently, right now, like Mr. Doyle said, what we would have is a situation where we would train somebody as a recruit. They'd get out of the academy, they'd do their probation for a year, we'd send them to paramedic school, and it costs us approximately $100,000 in overtime to people that are going to backfill those positions because we have constant staffing. That being said, how do we fix this by going on the front end? Well, we don't have to pay that extra $100,000. We just pay about approximately $50,000 in salary and tuition to the paramedic school. We have a contract with UCLA Medical Center, and they're the ones that train our paramedics. They do an outstanding job. So by training them on the front end, that brings us people that start day one as a firefighter, probationary firefighter, as a firefighter paramedic. And they'll be rated as a firefighter paramedic for a year. They'll spend 5 months on a truck company, which is the big long one with the guy that drives the backside, or the girl, whoever might be. And then we have the engine, the smaller one. They spend 5 months on that, and then they spend about 2 months doing written tests and stuff like that. So that's what we're looking for. It's a more effective way. It actually makes a lot more sense, because if for some reason that individual does not pass paramedic school, after they get off probation, we bought them for 30 years. Their 30-year career with our fire department means that they probably will not go back to paramedic school if they didn't pass the first time. By doing it up front, we're going to make sure that they're as prepared as possible to pass paramedic school and the recruit academy. And if they're not successful in both of those, then we haven't made a huge investment with them. It's easier to cut and part ways with them. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have if there's any fog in the process.
Then I have a question. Go ahead.
So would everyone then be going to paramedic school? Essentially, all of the new firefighter recruits would be going to paramedic school?
Great question. So what we would have is, because we would have 2 lists, and that's what the recommendation is, we'd have a paramedic list and we'd have an open firefighter recruit list. The EMTs that have been experienced EMT for 6 years or 6 months within the last 2 years before they apply, they would go to paramedic school. The paramedics that are already paramedics would go through the recruit academy, and as soon as they're done with the recruit academy, they would be put right into the fire stations, and then they would start their probation. So again, for every paramedic we hire, we're saving approximately $50,000 in training, not to mention the $100,000 for backfill. So it's about $147,000 in savings.
But currently, do all firefighters have paramedic training?
No, we don't. Currently, we do not. But I will say this, on every engine company, all 9 engine companies throughout the city, there has to be 2 firefighter paramedics on it at all times so that we can respond and give advanced life support to those people within our community. So if you're not a paramedic right now, basically there's only a couple places you could serve. There's 3 truck companies in the city. That's where they would serve. The truck companies, again, are the long hook and ladder, or they could be this battalion chief staff assistant, but they can't operate on an engine company.
So would it then be correct to say that, if you fast forward several years, you basically have a full firefighter personnel with everyone having paramedic training?
Yes, ma'am. That is the goal, is to have every firefighter to be a firefighter paramedic. Because again, what we're doing is we're bringing an advanced life support protocol to the community in all 9 districts. And this is one of the reasons why we revamped our system to have the EMTs driving the ambulances and having paramedics in every district so that we can get there faster to do those advanced life support techniques and protocols to get people to, we save lives. We actually save more lives doing that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Chief, my question is, can you elaborate? What did you mean when you said we're essentially buying 30 years of their career with the city if they don't pass the test?
So again,
I wasn't following you
what
there.
we're trying to do is we're trying to make it to where every firefighter on the department has the ability to either work on an engine or on a truck.
Right.
If we send somebody to paramedic school after they get off probation, and they are not successful in getting through paramedic school.
I see.
We've purchased them for 30 years.
You have them as a firefighter.
As a firefighter, single function.
But that's where you said, I believe you said that because the chances of them going back to paramedic school is not great. Could we not make it part of the department's policy that since my colleague, Commissioner Yakubian, inquired, and I think you gave an affirmative answer, that our long-term objective is to have every firefighter be also a paramedic. We could, I suppose, make a requirement that if they fail, that they return to retake, but I guess it would be at our dime.
It would be on our dime.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
So I see the benefit in doing it ahead of time, certainly, yes. Of course.
Currently, we have 4 members in paramedic school right now, and this is the old way of doing it. Right? They've graduated from probation. They've made it through successfully as a firefighter, and then we sent them. They're in paramedic school right now, and there's 4 openings on the line, as we call it, right, within engines and truck companies. So because of that, and we're paying the overtime. If they're not successful and they come back, they still have job right ownership to their position. And they would just be a firefighter until, A, we either promote them, or B, give them another opportunity to go to paramedic school.
Okay. I'm sorry, I just have one more follow-up question.
Yes.
Currently, under this system, from your new recruits, what percentage choose to go and get paramedic traiing?
Is it a choice, by the way?
It is a choice.
Oh, it
is? Okay. It is a choice. It was a choice in the past. I would say we have about 100% of the recruits that get hired they go and they take the test. I would say we've had probably one in the last 5 years that decided he did not want to go to paramedic school. That was not in his job description, and he chose not to do that, and he's seeking other avenues to promote to engineer. You don't have to be a paramedic to promote to engineer, or captain for that matter, from a firefighter rank. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Rep. Kirian.
I have a comment to make. Basically, GFA participated in a series of meetings designated to address a variety of priorities and objectives, including overtime mitigation and hiring practices. I'm just reading from what was given to us. This meeting resulted in a 2-year extension to the existing MOU between the city and the GFA. And it says one of the most important elements was efforts to increase diversity within the department.
Yes.
I'm looking at the 3 pages that I read here. I see the changes made to the EMT program, and I see the changes, a substantial amount of changes made to licensing, education, experience, and everything else. But I have to say I'm a bit disappointed not to see more in here having to do with what was agreed with the GFFA, which was efforts to increase diversity within the community. I mean, if you're doing a bulletin, and one of the most important part of it is diversity within the department, and then you put on a 3-page recruitment, I think more effort should have been made to also address the number 1 item, which was the item that was discussed with GFFA. So I have to say that I'm personally looking at what was actually put out. I'm a bit disappointed not seeing more items addressing the diversity within the department and more efforts on just the EMT portion of it.
Well, we can explain. You want to go into the hourly promotional
Yes, discussion? Absolutely. Sir, so here's how it works. What we did previous to this revamp of the MOU is we had the ability to promote from within our ambulance operator and our cadet ranks. 25% of those people that went into, 30% could be promoted from cadet or ambulance operator into being a firefighter recruit. They increased that number. And the reason why we increased that number is because we're bringing a lot more people from our local community in as cadets and ambulance operators. So we have a a great farm system, if you will, to bring people in from our community that reflect our community, that know our community, they know the culture, they speak the language, and it's an absolutely outstanding program that matriculates them from the lowest level, AO or cadet, gives them the opportunity to take the promotional examinations and move up to that position of firefighter recruit. So it would be a promotional process. In the process, they get to know the fire station culture. They get to see the firefighters in action. They get to be mentored in that process. So that was changed from 30% matriculation up to 50%. So half of my class when I put a recruit academy on will be from that rank. And again, we're talking about a lot of local people that are taking these jobs. And the marching order for my troops when they give oral interviews and to anybody that is on these oral panels is to really put a priority with our local community, give them the benefit of the doubt. If when in doubt, give them a shot. And then we can determine if they get into the fire station as an AO and a cadet, they're almost always welcomed with open arms. So I understand that it may not be written in here, but it is definitely being addressed at the line level, and we are definitely making a huge impact on how our future recruits are going to look like.
One quick comment. In fairness to you, sir, I've seen you do something that I've never seen done before, years. I've seen you reach out to every single organization out there, have one-on-one meetings, have done brainstorming sessions to address that very subject. And I applaud you and your staff and your team. What you've started, that path, I think will bear great results. So I know it's not in here, but I know all the different people that you've had these meetings, and myself being one of them also. That path that you have taken, I applaud you for it, and I think you'll get great results.
Thank you very much. And that's just the beginning, by the way.
And
that's the tip of the iceberg. We are going to keep going, and we're going to keep driving hard until we bring the people from our local community into the fire stations, driving fire engines, driving fire trucks, commanding fires, dealing with the people in our community and meeting their needs. There's no question about it in my mind. We're on the beginning of something very powerful, and I can't wait to see the 5-year results down the road.
Chair?
One more, okay.
Thank you. I'm a firm believer in the concept that if it's good enough to talk about it, it's good enough to write about it.
Okay.
Whereas I have to say, I was not aware of all that Commissioner Manukian just stated, and therefore I do applaud you and your colleagues and your team and your entire department. I can see how a commissioner like Abkarian would say, well, why isn't it in here? Because I think information is power and knowledge and illuminating. It's good to put it out there to the extent possible and then some, so that your excellent initiatives do not go unnoticed, because it should not go unnoticed, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you, sir.
Now I need to make a comment after all of that. we're patting each other's back, so let me just say, being in this city now going into 37 years.
You're not that old.
Being an 8-year previous commissioner sitting and watching the changes within the employment in this city, I applaud Chief Scoggins for doing what he's done, and new chief in town, so to speak, and I'm sure you will do great things. I haven't seen diversity in the fire department in the past 15 to 18 years. And to not say it, it's like saying, I know you're going to do a great job, because it seems like you have great support here, and they're basically supporting your thing. But, I haven't seen the great, and I was told 12 years ago that we were going to see great changes, and we're going to have at least 25% of the department be diversified, more diversified. And I haven't seen it. So I'm only voicing what the actual facts are and saying that what's in here does not reflect the MOU, and to just encourage, and it seems like you're doing what you're supposed to, encourage you to put it out in writing as well when you're doing this type of recruitment examination. That's all the comment that I just had to say.
Commissioner Abkarian, it is very grassroots, and it's being addressed as best as the chief can at the level of the hiring of hourly employees, the ambulance operators, the fire cadets. That's where we can pull people in. We have the greatest flexibility in hiring because these are hourly non-civil service positions, and expose people from this community to careers in the fire service. To take it the traditional route of just simply doing a fire recruit process, what we would typically end up with is 5,000 candidates from all over the state of California, Orange County, Santa Clarita, all over the place, and we'd have very little control over really the demographic entering that process. And and when that occurs, it's been very challenging to diversify when your labor pool is not necessarily that way. So again, the focus here on the hourly process of ambulance operators, EMTs, we believe will have some merit and really produce some results in the next few years.
One quick more comment. I think what might also be helpful is for the chief at a later time just to share with us all the things that he's got cooking, and these are things that I have never seen any other chief or any one other department go to that extent in the ideas. So I think might be helpful at a later point, maybe if you want to share that with everyone. So I think that.
Thank you, sir. I would love to do that. Absolutely.
For this evening, I would like to know, when did you come on as the chief of the fire department?
I was interim starting April 1st, and I was permanent chief starting September 1st. And it has been a privilege to start creating relationships that were previously not explored in our community. So, I could go on for a half hour of the stuff that Commissioner Manukian was talking about. The Hominid men, the local schools, the private schools, even the schools outside of our area, the bond that we have are working together with the community college and making sure that these diverse numbers are growing, and that there's a message out there that being a firefighter is a good thing, and it's a rewarding career to help the community and serve the people in the community. So the word is getting out, and I'm seeing it firsthand. I personally have mentored these diverse individuals in my own office on a regular basis, making sure that they get in the right hands, because that's what it is. It's all about forming relationships, and we are forming the relationships in our community to make a huge impact. And I agree with Commissioner Abkarian. I believe that our numbers don't reflect what they should. I'm not happy about that. But I can tell you this, now that I'm at the helm, things are going to change, and we're going to make great changes, and I think you're going to be very pleased with what you see coming up in the future.
Well, 3 months and 1 week in a permanent position, and if you can rattle off names like Hominid men, my hat's off to you. When you rattle off AGBU too, then more than, I think my colleague's hat's going to be off to you.
That's the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg. We are
He's met with them at least several times.
I think, Commissioner Abkarian, you're going to be very pleased in the next 15 years.
Again, it's not just the Armenian community. There are Korean communities, there's Hispanic communities. Diversity means diversity.
Right.
And it doesn't just mean Armenian community. I just want to make that very clear. I didn't mean that you need to meet with just the Armenian community leaders and organizations. I meant that you need to diversify and be reflective of the entire community, including the Korean community, the Hispanic and Filipino community in this. Females.
Absolutely.
Very important. So that's basically what I meant. And I know I'm hearing what you're doing. It seems like you have great support from people. You talk like you've known him for 10 years now.
Excuse me.
So
I think I appreciate what everyone's saying. I think we've really beat this thing beyond what we need to do. We have a full agenda tonight, and I think the chief has gotten a strong message from the commissioners on the direction that we like to see you go, and that we appreciate what you're doing. And I go along with Commissioner Manukian's suggestion that maybe at a future meeting you could come back and give us a progress report. which perhaps will address some of the concerns that Commissioner Abkarian presented.
I would love that.
Comments? All right, well, comments.
And the
concerns.
plan that you've, shared with some people, I think that's a great plan. If you share it with everybody else, I think they'll be impressed.
I can do that.
And with that, I think we'll move on to the next item, and thank you.
Move to approve? Second.
We have unanimous consent.
Thank you so
very
much.
much, Chief Fish.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Class specification for approval, wireless communication series, and job bulletin for approval, wireless systems technician.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is both a revision of a specification series as well as the approval of a bulletin. We'll take these in two parts. The specification is to add this classification called Wireless Systems Manager to an existing job series. This would be a managerial level within the series, which we hope to fill on a promotional exam in the near future. Thus, it requires a change to the specification. The second part is the job bulletin for approval. And as I've said many times, not all job bulletins do have to come before the Commission, but this is an instance where one would have to, and this is a case of a position that was recruited for on a promotional basis in its previous administration, and we're therefore proposing that it be done on an open basis, meaning that we would put it out outside the organization. And for that reason, and to be consistent with the rules, we thus are having this brought before you. I will note that the Wireless Systems Manager is a newly established classification, and lest you think that this is adding layers of management to a series, this is actually taking the person who ran this operation before used to be a much higher ranking information services administrator. When that person retired, we've since downgraded it to a manager position. So again, our hope would be that you would approve the specification and then enable us to do an open bulletin for this position of technician. So.
Okay.
Second.
We have unanimous. Did you have
Yes.
Unanimous consent on that. Thank you. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval and job bulletin for approval, Senior Security Systems Manager.
Mr. Doyle.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is similar to the previous item. We're asking approval on a specification, revision to an existing specification for the Security Systems Manager series. Really, it's two classifications, the manager and the senior manager, as well as a job bulletin for approval for the Senior Security Systems Manager. Again, this is a situation where the specification is being changed to include the term network systems. They're going to have this person in charge of not just security but also networking throughout the city, and that's really the crux of the changes to the specification. As far as the bulletin, once again, this is a case of a bulletin that was previously recruited for on a promotional basis, and we're recommending that it be recruited for on an open basis. We don't believe there's a sufficient candidate pool internally to warrant another promotional exam. So with that, if you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Second.
Unanimous consent. Next item, please.
Class specific.
No, he's scared me there, Sam. Gotta stay with the program.
Class specification for approval, Recreation Leader Series.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a revision to the Recreation Leader Series. It's a number of reasons we're doing this, the biggest being that it's been a while since this has been looked at. 1998 was the last time. And we've actually stopped using a classification in this series, this recreation attendant. It's a bit obsolete. So what we've done is really made the Recreation Leader 1 really the entry level in this series, and we've modified some of the minimum requirements to encourage people who are either just high school graduates or attending college that they would be eligible to apply for this position that does recreation programs. They do coaching, they do teaching, and so that entry level, the minimum requirements of 3 months shouldn't be too challenging for someone to meet. Again, there are other cleanup items on the specification, emphasis on customer service, some of the discussions of having minor maintenance duties, as well as always an emphasis on getting candidates who have bilingual skills. So anyway, that's the item. If you have questions, be happy to try and answer them.
Second.
Unanimous consent. Next item, please.
Human Resources Activity Report, fiscal year 2014,
I thought
2015.
We're going to, well, we have to read it, and we're going to postpone that till next meeting. Item number 11, the annual activity report. It's approved.
And I appreciate that. This is an important report we give you each year. There's a lot of good information, and I think to give it the attention it needs, we should move it to another time. So.
It's been moved. Okay. Next item.
Police Captain Examination.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item was put on the agenda at the request of the Chair, and it has to do with the recently administered examination for police captain in the police department. Last week, specifically Tuesday, December the 1st, we conducted an oral interview process for the position of police captain. As you know, this position is a key member of the command staff of the Glendale Police Department, and typically the individuals who are police captains have a direct reporting relationship with the chief of police. This was a promotional process, meaning that the candidates who participated are all internal candidates. They're all currently serving at the rank of lieutenant within the Glendale Police Department. We assembled an interview panel consisting of 4 police chiefs from other jurisdictions because of the fact that our candidates were all internal. We wanted to make sure we had people from outside the organization. It was the job of those chiefs to conduct the interviews and evaluate the candidates, and it was a fairly substantive process where the interviews were, I believe, about 45 minutes to an hour in duration. So they spent a great deal of time with each candidate, and the scores that would be assigned by the interview panelists would constitute what the ranks and scores that we would establish our eligibility list. The interview panel concluded last Tuesday's process, and my staff began the process of tallying up the scores, and the plan was to release the scores on Friday, December the 4th of last week. And the reason we do that, immediately following the administration of any exam, there's what's known as an appeal period, and it runs for the duration of 3 business days. And in the appeal period, any candidate who feels that they've been aggrieved in the process, or that there was something about the process that was unfair, or an inappropriate question was asked, or non-job related inquiries were made, they can then bring that to the...
That's during the interview process?
Well, yes.
That appeal only applies to that interview process?
To that process, and if they feel that that there's something worthy of an appeal, they would be compelled to bring that to our attention within that 3-day period. Once the 3-day period is completed, then
for releasing the results.
Correct. Then the results would be released. The candidates would be noticed, and the plan was to allow that appeal period to go through the end of business on Friday, and then sometime after 5 p.m. on Friday, we would contact the participants and give them their score and rank and on the process. So that was the plan. In the days following the administration of that exam, it was brought to my attention that the police chief may have had some improper communications with members of the interview panel prior to the exam being administered. When I heard this news, I contacted the police chief, and we had a brief meeting. He did confirm that he had conversations with members of this panel prior to the interviews, in which he may have offered his opinion as to the qualifications of various candidates that were part of that interview process. This caused me great concern. It's my job as HR director to ensure that these processes are done in as fair and objective manner as possible. And if there's even the hint of any sort of compromise of the integrity of that exam, that would be something I would need to address. The information I had, I thought about it, slept on it, and thus, given what I was told, I made the decision that this exam needed to be canceled and re-administered. I did this. I made this decision. I consulted with the city attorney, the city manager, and Police Chief Castro, and all were in agreement that the appropriate thing to do was to have this exam thrown out and re-administered. On Friday, December the 4th, I thus notified the participants in the examination that this decision was made. I noticed the Civil Service Commission in the form of an email, and we're essentially, we took it from there. I did receive a contact from Commissioner Devine, who at that point had asked me to have this item agendized, and he therefore wanted to, I believe, offer some ideas and concepts on the re-administration of the exam. And that's where we are for right now. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Chief Castro is here today, and I believe we have individuals who want to speak on the matter. So. Okay,
let me lead off on this to kind of, pardon me, set the stage. As Matt mentioned, once I received the email from Mr. Doyle indicating that the exam was canceled, my immediate goal was to bring it to the commission prior to the establishing of a new exam. And my intent in doing that was to make sure that this commission could weigh in on the new exam to make sure it was going to be fair and unbiased, and that it would present a level playing field for all of the candidates. With that being said, what I'd like to do to lead off the discussion on this is to first ask the commissioners if they have any questions on the material that Mr. Doyle just presented in terms of academic questions. Once those are resolved, and I would hope you'd resolve or reserve any comments or decisions you make until we hear the whole process. But if you have direct questions on what he presented, that'll be fine. Once that's done, I'd like to hear from any interested parties in the audience. And I do have one card from Ms. Stotler, and we will certainly hear your comments. If anyone else wishes to address the commission on it, you're certainly welcome to do so. And finally, when we complete that, we'll get into the deliberations and decide the best course of action to take on this. And I will state that I will be leading off this time the deliberations with some thoughts and ideas that I have to set the stage for the deliberations. So with that in mind, we'll take the first step and ask, I know questions. Commissioner Manukian has a question on what Mr. Doyle presented.
Mr. Doyle, just for my information, I just want to find out the process of this from A to Z as far as for when they apply for a captain's position. How long does it take, and what are the steps? I mean, it starts with the interview, the written exam. Is there a written exam that they go through?
Commissioner Manukian, there was no written exam on this. There was an application filing process, and we began with 7 candidates, one dropped out, and ultimately all of the remaining individuals met the minimum qualifications for the job and were thus scheduled for the oral interview panel that I had mentioned.
And is there only one interview panel, or is there different interview panels?
In this process, there was just the one, what we would typically refer to as an outside professional panel.
And those were the other
police chiefs, correct.
That's it?
That was it, yes.
There's no, okay. So that interview panel has a lot of 100% of the weight.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I just want to understand.
And that's what we.
May I, Chief?
Yeah.
May I,
Yeah.
Chief?
I'm sorry. This process, how long did it take roughly from when the bulletin, when they? I just want to get an idea because I heard maybe it's a 6 month. It doesn't sound like that's that.
No,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Manukian, I believe the bulletin was posted at the end of October through early November, and we saw the candidate pool and made the determination of when to schedule the exam process, and you kind of wait to see how many you're going to get before you determine how to set that up. But essentially, it amounted to about a day full of interviews.
Okay.
Given the number
That's
of
all the
candidates.
questions that I have.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Chair. I am looking at the rule that you, Mr. Doyle, relied on in nullifying the test results. Am I correct? Is that what you did essentially? You canceled the test results.
Yes.
And you relied on the rule in doing so, correct?
Yes.
All right. So in reading that rule, I see the following. And I'm referring to Rule 4 of the Civil Service Rules, Examination and Eligible Lists, Section 7, Examination Administration. It states, all examinations shall be administered under the direction of the Director of Human Resources, that is you, Mr. Doyle, and shall be subject to the control of the Commission, and that is us on this body. The Director of Human Resources may, A, extend, cancel announcement, extend the filing period or cancel the employment opportunity announcement, and B, postpone or cancel the exam, postpone or cancel any examination before or after it has been given. And in hearing you, Mr. Doyle, you have stated that days following that exam, which I now understand it to have taken place on December 1st, a Tuesday prior to yesterday, a week prior to, your wording moments ago was to the effect that police chief may have had an improper communication with those who were to interview the candidates. I accept your representation, having no knowledge or no dispute at this point. I accept your representation as a given, as true, and based on that, I say you did the right thing. This is me, Commissioner Gazarian, speaking now. So if you did the right thing, and we are still this commission, which all of these examinations are to be under your direction, Director of Human Resources, and subject to the control of this commission. My question is, why is this matter agendized to do exactly what? So if someone can tell me that, perhaps Chair, I would know where I'm going with this. Because as far as I'm concerned, okay, you did the right thing by canceling it, re-administer the test. I assume you know what was the improper communication. I don't want to know what it was. I take your word for it unless somebody wants to challenge that it was not improper. And then I would want to see you proceed and re-administer a test, making sure there is no such improper communication. What am I missing?
You're missing the announcement I made a few minutes ago when
Which
I
was?
explained why it's before the commission.
I must have missed it, so
okay.
please tell me again.
And what I said was, when I heard that this transaction took place,
Right.
my goal and intent was to make sure that the new exam was fair and unbiased and presented a level playing field. The exam the bulletin that we approved changed the conditions under which the exam was administered. I didn't want the new exam to follow that same rule, so my goal tonight is to come up with recommendations for a new exam that will preclude these types of discrepancies.
Okay, but I have to say, in all fairness, I think the examination methodology we approved, which essentially did away for this term only, for this round only, the citizens panel, I recall, because we also similarly did away a citizens panel with the fire department examination of their captains.
It's a joint.
It's a joint panel, right?
Citizens.
I think to now, forgive me for trying to read your mind, Chair Devine, if your intention or inclination is to make it more fair by saying, well, let's bring that panel back as a component, I can't help but think that strikes me as punitive rather than rehabilitative, because I have not seen or heard any information or evidence that leads me to believe that the lack of the citizens or internal panel or the combination thereof was the cause that rendered this test not trustworthy. So that I'm at a loss.
Okay. Those are good points, and as I mentioned earlier, I think that's something we can talk about during deliberations. Right now, the idea was to ask questions as to what happened. Mr. Mnuchin did that. You have done that. You've asked good questions. What I'd like to do now is ask for input from anybody that wishes to speak, and then we can get into discussing the points you're bringing up, which I think are very good points, and I think they need to be discussed. But let's hear from the people involved, and then we'll get into deliberations. Okay. Did you have this?
Well, I'll hold off.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Good. Ms. Stotler.
Chair Devine and members of the Commission, thank you for scheduling this item. My name is Laura Stotler. I am president of the Glendale Management Association, and I am here tonight because the Glendale Management Association represents all of the employees who are impacted by this testing process. Several months ago, the GMA was contacted when changes to the process were first proposed. We understand that the city has been streamlining various processes throughout the city in order to eliminate redundant processes or processes that appear to serve no purpose. The proposed modifications for the captain's test appeared to be along that vein, and for that reason, GMA did not object. We decided to trust the new process proposed, and we trusted that there would be close oversight by human resources, even though the single panel format was less transparent than the traditional dual panel testing that's occurred in the past. However, it's now clear that the current process has a flaw because it allowed for a violation of civil service rules to occur. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Our safety members applied for and interviewed for the captain's position in good faith. These men and women deserve no less than a fair, unbiased interview and ranking based on merit, which is the purpose of civil service. It's not only fair to the employees, but it's also fair to the public. We hope that the Commission has been fully briefed on the circumstances and specifics that led to the cancellation of this promotional process. We ask that you investigate where the failure occurred in order that the process may be changed to prevent it from occurring in the future. The GMA encourages a fair and transparent process, more like the traditional multi-panel format that is tightly regulated by the Civil Service Commission and the Human Resources Department. We need a process that has human resources participation and oversight, a process with adequate checks and balances to ensure that applicants are interviewed fairly and ranked on merit. We want a process that encourages everyone to act with integrity, because that is the core of our civil service protections. The GMA also wants to commend Director Matt Doyle for acting on the information discovered. It's not always easy to do the right thing. So, Matt, know that we appreciate and respect you and your staff for doing it. We hope that you will consider the concerns raised by GMA, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question over, yes. I have a question over.
Okay. Ms. Stotler?
Good evening, Ms. Stotler. What do you mean when you say we ask that you investigate where the process failed? How do you, forgive me, let me finish. How do you expect this body to investigate sitting here in a public forum being informed of that which we've been informed of? Because that's all I'm aware of. So how am I supposed to investigate? I would like to know what GMA thinks we should be doing here.
The GMA thinks that we ought to look at the process that allows a failure to occur. Where was the oversight? Because clearly there was a problem in oversight. Now, whether the oversight was a result of a change in the process, which we assume must have happened, because I don't know exactly what the failure was. All I know is that it occurred, and it occurred with a new process. Didn't happen before when we had dual process. So I know there's been a change, and I know there's been a failure. That's why I'm asking you, please investigate it. Please make sure that we have a process that's fair and unbiased. And we do trust you. I mean, we know that is your responsibility, and we know you do a great job. And that's why we are here asking for you to please take a look at that process, that single panel process. Was it fair? Where did the error occur? And we have exactly the same concerns that what would prevent it from happening again? So that's what we're asking for. And perhaps the answer is training. Maybe it's something else. But there needs to be something that occurs, because the last thing we want to do is repeat it. And I know you was brought up before. You know, what is it? The adage. You know, if something happens and it fails once, and I don't correct it, you know, shame on you. But if it happens again because I haven't made the corrections, shame on me. And that's what we want to prevent. We want to prevent there from being another.
I've been waiting to.
Problem. So that's where we're coming from, and that's why we're happy you agendized this item, because we are exactly concerned with the same things you are. We want a fair process, and we want a transparent process.
I'm not sure how I can investigate anything sitting here. I'm going to want a lot more to look into, so we'll see where we go.
Good question, based on what she said.
I think, Pauline, I think you were next. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just actually just wanted to confirm that I heard correctly something that you said. I think you said that the process change had come to GMA first, and that you were actually for it, correct?
It did come to us, and yeah, we understand that there's a reason for streamlining, and we were willing to trust the process that there wouldn't be an issue, but an issue did occur, and so that's why we want to find out, just as you do, what happened, because we don't want to see that happen again. We have good men and women applying for these positions. They deserve a fair shot, and the public deserves to have a fair process as well.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Couple of clarification. When we had this hearing, you guys did not show up to address any concerns, right? I just want to clarify. But you were informed.
No, we were informed, absolutely. Human Resources let us know. We did talk to our members that were in the police department. We decided, we would try a different process. And we were willing to try a different process, and we supported it at that time. However, now we have concerns with it, and so that's why I'm here.
And the concerns that, okay, I just want to clarify, we're all talking about the same thing. The reason why we're here is because the system worked. I mean, that's one of the items that I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same thing. And the concern that you have, or the GMA has, is based on reverting. Is it your recommendation that we add that other panel? I don't understand. That's what I'm trying to get a clarification on.
Well, at this point, we don't know where the failure occurred, and we know before when there was a dual. We know before when there was a dual panel, a panel with citizens as well as the professional experts, police chiefs, that we didn't have this problem. There wasn't a problem with miscommunication. So something occurred somewhere. So this is what I'm saying. So I'm encouraging it. I would never tell you how to do your job.
You want us to investigate, correct? Forgive me for interrupting. You want us to investigate, but you don't have anything specific that you are here saying, look, I represent the GMA, and we're asking this commission to please do X, Y, or Z. You don't have that.
No, we're asking you to please consider going back to a dual process where there wasn't a problem in the past.
There was. That's where I beg to differ. This commissioner believes that there was a problem with the dual process in the past. That's why I opted to vote for a process that did not have the internal/citizens panel, because I had heard nothing but complaints over the years as a citizen in the city from civil service employees who were coming to me asking me to take action as a practicing attorney, which I did not because it's not my line of expertise, which was all related to that citizen/internal panel. So when that matter came before this body, that was my Commissioner Gazarian's thinking to say, oh, finally, I can now say, here's a chief that doesn't want that. Well, I've heard nothing but negative stuff about that. I've heard nothing but people with nod and a wink doing things. So good riddance. So
and that was exactly my case too.
I don't know about bringing it back is a solution for what may have gone wrong here. It may be a double problem bringing it back. That's where I'm at right now. And I'm open to suggestions and otherwise.
And I think those are good points that we'll bring up.
And we're encouraging that discussion to occur. That's why we're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Kubian, do you have any more questions for her?
No, not for her.
Okay. Mr. Abkarian, do you have any questions? Mr. Logan? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone else wish to address the commission on this? Seeing no one, what I'd like to do now is get into our deliberations. As I stated earlier, that I want to set the stage as far as where I'm coming from on this, and then we'll open it up for comments from the other commissioners.
Chair Devine, before we get into the deliberation, may I, because I missed that one meeting, and I'm still really not clear on exactly what happened. I think there's a lot of non-information, so if I may ask Matt a few questions.
Please. Absolutely.
Matt, I received your email, and I listened to you explaining the appeal process. You know, I guess my question is, what and how did this come to your attention? Whatever this is, because I'm still not clear about what it is.
Commissioner Kubian, as I said, in the days following the administration of the exam, it was brought to my attention that the chief may have had some improper communication with members of that panel, and at that phase, it sounded like pretty clear evidence. I spoke to the chief right away and asked him a few questions, and he confirmed for me that yes, in fact, he had, and that was really all I needed to determine whether or not that could have had a bearing on how those police chiefs score these candidates. So,
would it have been from one of the applicants?
No.
No. Okay.
I want to clarify, because we did talk about the appeal period as it relates to the applicants. It was not an applicant who raised anything.
I'm sorry, if I may join my fellow commissioner. Did the GMA indicate to HR how many of the applicants the GMA has interviewed about this process, or what has occurred? Because that 3-day period happened. I'm curious, how many were there? There were 6 of them. 7, 1 dropped off, right?
That's correct.
So of the 6, where do these 6 fall in terms of what their thoughts are about what has occurred, if they know anything? Do they know anything?
Commissioner Gazarian, the candidates know nothing. Okay. Other than
but now they know it's open.
Electronic mail that I sent to the commission really contained the same information that was provided to the candidates, just what I had said about improper communication. But that's all the information they have. I've heard back from a few of them who were, of course, disappointed, and it was it was a lot of preparation. It was very stressful. I don't want to have to do it again, but. Really, no further inquiries were raised on the specific point relative to this exam being canceled from the candidates. So I think at this point they're all kind of just waiting to see what comes next. They're all still in the running, as far as I'm concerned, and just waiting to hear how we're going to do this the next phase.
Matt, who picks the panel?
Good question. The panel is, I would say it's a joint process between my department and the operating department. And ultimately, Human Resources is responsible for the selection of panel members. However, I will say we do take suggestions from the operating departments, particularly on a position at this level. You want to make sure that you're getting panelists who are qualified, that have comparable experience, comparably sized cities, people that have credible reputations and such. We do rely upon the operating department for a great deal of assistance in administering this exam, and I'd be lying to you if I told you that it's our intent to do the entire exam on our own because we can't. We're not subject matter experts.
Mm-hmm.
We need their assistance in, writing the questions. We need their assistance in developing the criteria. We need their assistance in determining, what their expectations are and what key traits, characteristics they're seeking. So there is the best way I could describe it is a partnership. But ultimately, under the provisions of the rules, I am responsible for these exams and anything wrong that goes with it. And thus, this is why I took that action. I felt that something wrong had occurred with this.
So you said there may have been inappropriate communications, and I'm assuming these communications are verbal? Okay, so then you said, but I confirmed them. So which one is it? Is it,
I said after I had become aware of this, I had spoken to the police chief directly, and he was very forthright, very apologetic, and very, very much regretful of what had occurred. But ultimately, as I said earlier, he supported the decision to start this over again.
So I'm just trying to kind of understand the process. So if you are relying on the police department to pick your panel, which you have to because they are the subject matter experts. Right?
I wouldn't say that. What I had said was they're free to offer recommendations on individuals based on what they know of people's reputations and such. I will say for probably 75% of the oral boards that we coordinate, most of the time it is a member of my staff that will get on the phone and call around to other cities saying, hey, we're doing a recruitment for a building inspector, and we need somebody who's a supervisor in a building inspection department, something like that, and we simply wait to see what comes in. But if an operating department does have a suggestion, a recommendation about, hey, this individual from Culver City is really one of the renowned authorities on that particular field, sure, we'll call them up and see if that individual is available to evaluate for us. And the same goes for a position at this level. It gets very difficult when you're recruiting for executive level positions and upper management positions because the pool of potential interview panelists is somewhat small. It's narrow. People know one another through associations and things like that. So it's really, really hard to find somebody who's completely, unbiased, that doesn't know people from our department or from their jurisdiction. So.
Microphone.
Oh.
It's not, well,
I'm just kidding.
I can't.
The process, which is what I understand, Matt, please confirm if I'm wrong. A examination was given, a communication which turned out to be inappropriate, which wasn't known to the party in the beginning. I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone. I'm just giving you my take of it. Was brought to your attention. You contacted the person who had the inappropriate communication, which was the chief, I'm assuming, at that point.
Yes.
The chief said, 100% I did it, I apologize or something, I don't know, whatever he said. And you decided based on that communication to go ahead and cancel the exam.
More or less, yes. Yes.
And now we are here to move to the next step of seeing what the commission wants to do in reference to what step we're going to be taking on the next step.
On the next exam.
Yeah. On the next exam. Right. So
Exactly right.
I think my opinion would be let's move to the next step.
Let's go.
That's why I want to hear
because
more
I think to rehash what happened. I mean, it is what it is, and something has happened. Somebody has admitted to it. God knows I made my fair share of mistakes, and I admit to them. So I think we need to just move on. I think we go to the next step. What do we want to do next?
Okay. And with that, I'd like to lay out what I'm thinking, and then the commissioners can comment on that. Sam, I'm firmly committed to having the community panel, the dual panel, reinstated the way it was originally before we changed it. The second thing that I would like to see is to require an HR observer or proctor to sit in on the interviews. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that has been done in the past. That is not an unusual step during an exam, that you have had proctors sit in on exams before.
Mr. Chair, occasionally that's done. At this level, it's been done.
Okay.
It's usually when we have an executive level position and we have high-ranking people, city managers, department heads on a panel. I'll have a staff member in the room. As you may or may not know, we are required to tape record all of our interviews, and typically that person will serve a dual function of recording the interview as well as sort of monitoring the process.
That done, did you have a proctor on this exam? Was somebody from HR sitting in on this exam?
No.
Okay.
No.
Number 3, and Mr. Doyle alluded to this, that I want to require that the HR director have the sole and final discretion in selecting the interview panel. Now, I understand that you need the input from the department involved, especially where there's expertise involved, but I want to make sure that there is no influence over you in terms of insisting on a particular interviewer versus another, that you have the final say.
Okay.
And so I'd like to see that included. The fourth thing, I read there's a conflict of interest questionnaire that all of the interviewers have to fill out before the exam, before they're chosen for the position to interview. And when I read I think there were 7 or 8 questions on there, but they all related to whether or not the interviewers had any contact with or talked with any of the candidates. There was nothing concerning any possible conflict that the interviewers themselves may have had with the department or the city. So with that, there were 2 questions that I thought should be added to that questionnaire that the interviewers would fill out. The first one would be, do you have any business or financial dealings with a department for which you are evaluating a candidate? And I bring that up because it was my understanding that in this case that one of the interviewers did in fact have a financial or a business relationship with the police department. The second question I'd like to have put on there.
Sir, if I could interrupt, did you say business or financial dealings with the candidate or with the city?
With the department? With a department for which you are evaluating a candidate.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay. And the last item would be on the added item on the questionnaire would be, have you been contacted by or have you had any communication from or with anyone from the city of Glendale regarding the candidates you will be interviewing? And I feel that with those 4 steps, including the 2 added questions on the interview questionnaire, that we would approach, if not solve the problem, of creating a fair and level playing field and coming back with an exam that is fair and unbiased. And with that, I'm going to open it up to my colleagues.
And I'm going to make some comments also in the overall. First of all, in my opinion, I think Chief Castro is one of the best police chiefs this department's ever had. Simple as that. And I think I trust him 100% in running this department. And just as a clarification, when I hear inappropriate communication, there has just been communication, period. Inappropriate communication. The communication should have never happened. We understand, and that's already been admitted to. In my opinion, bringing the community panel will not make any improvements to this process. I think the process worked. The process worked in a sense that there was an issue and it was caught and Matt dealt with it. But I still trust our chief 100% in knowing how to run his department. In my opinion, those changes that you were recommending, if they are going to be implemented, they should be implemented to all departments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And those are great suggestions. I mean, I would think anyone sitting on that interview panel, if they've got a conflict of interest, they shouldn't be there, period. Please. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think those recommendations, again, I would support it in a way that it applies to every department. And those questions I would have thought they were there already. But to bring the interview panel as far as the community panel into it, that's not going to resolve what occurred. I mean, that's my opinion. But the other portions of suggestions that we had, I would support it 100%. That's just my opinion. But again, I am 100% in support of our chief, and I think he's one of the best chiefs that we've ever had, and he's made changes, and I support him continuously, and I still support him with this process.
I'd like to go next.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a little bit confused. We're kind of saying everything at the same time. I mean, I agree with Commissioner Gazarian and Commissioner Abkarian. You know, whatever has happened, and we're all kind of saying that nothing really has happened and that the system works. So to be suggesting sort of, you know, agendizing it and then suggesting all of this, I think sends a message that we think something wrong happened or that the system didn't work. And so now we are, in a way, being, I think, punitive. So I think we are being, if nothing, inconsistent in what we are saying up here. So that is what is concerning me. So if there's been a communication and it hasn't been appropriate and the examination was rendered void and a new examination is going to pass, and so then the system worked, so why are we sitting here, you know, and addressing a grave concern and substantial changes in the future, if that is the case? I don't get it.
I'm going to take Chair Devine, I'm going to take your suggestions one at a time and tell you which ones I agree with, which ones I do not agree with the most affection that I can have for you.
Okay.
The dual panel I don't agree with. I can tell you over and over again why. I'm very passionate about that. It's because it has been drilled into my ears over the years by those who have gone up before panels, who have then told me, I scored in the 90th percentile, I scored 97% in the outside panel, but the community panel gave me 70% because so-and-so did not like me, the other person liked the other one, and it becomes that which I believe the chief came here asking to allow him to not have to deal with, to just go on merit. Now, I understand the communication issue. I don't condone it. In fact, it pains me to realize that my chief is a human being. I thought he was superhuman. But hey, you know what? Everybody's a human being, and starting with me. So the dual panel, I will vote no with all my affection towards you because I firmly believed in it when I said no the first time. The HR sitting in on the interview, I absolutely, short of demanding it, I really strongly implore that somebody got to be sitting in there. Just so that nobody can ever say, oh, somebody was saying this or somebody was nodding this way or winking that way. That's to protect those in that room just as much as to protect the process.
Mr. Gazarian, if I could interrupt you.
Sure.
I want to make clear that I hope it's not suggesting that that be done for every interview panel we do, because that would be an all-day.
At this
all-day.
level.
Okay.
I'm talking this
Well,
level.
I think one of you said that these should apply to everything, and
No, he said it should apply to all departments, but at the executive level.
Executive level,
Right.
all departments.
okay, to have a Russ Kwan or someone sitting in, well, whoever.
I have problems with this.
Okay.
May I continue?
Just saying for you. I'm
May I
sorry.
continue?
Please.
Sorry.
the final say-so as to who the interviewers ought to be. I always understood it to be you with input, so I would expect it to continue to be you with whatever input but the buck stops with you. We know that, and you know that. The interviewers, those who are selected as interviewers by you, who have a conflict with the city, that's got to be tightened to the extent that Chair Devine suggested, whether it's economic interest, business dealings, or whatever the case may be. And even dare I say, whether one is married to the cousin of another person who's a management in the city, there should not be such close affinity, other than professional affinity. That's my suggestion. As far as whether or not there's been any contact with department heads, that's as a question to be posed to those who you select, Mr. Doyle, as the interviewers, if you will. Yeah, that should be inquired about. That should be inquired about whether or not there's been any communication ahead of time, so that it would certainly save us the process of having engaged in the testing only to nullify it. And I return to where I began. The rules are clear. I'm okay that this matter was put on the agenda by the chair, but I am really imploring everybody here to not revert to something that is contradictory to what we decided, and it's nothing other than punitive to now add a panel. Because whether that panel was there or not, nothing would have been ensured. Because if a communication was made, the communication was made. If it should not have been made, therefore it was made, therefore everything would have been null anyway. So my concern is born out of the many concerns expressed to me in the past about that internal panel. Until that changes or someone convinces me that, no, that is the gospel or the holy book of your religious choosing, and that is the way to go, I'm going to always say no. Thank you.
Mr. Abkarian.
We have the chief here. Chief, can I ask you one question? And I just want that to be the one question I'm going to ask you, which is, good evening. First of all, I want to make a comment before I ask you the question. The only reason I agreed with this process was because of your integrity. I said that before, and I continue to say it. And as we sit here today, I believe that, and that's the only reason that I wasn't as question. I think I mentioned that in our meeting. I want to hear from you. Based on what has happened, do you still believe that a professional oral panel will still work and will achieve the results that you believe is necessary for your department?
Absolutely. For the same reasons that have been explained in the previous time that I asked for this, I have stories, I have proof that times have been used with other panels where applicants were not given a fair share. And a professional panel, that's why I asked for 4 chiefs on this panel, not just 3, to have additional input.
There's your question.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. First of all, I want to say that the financial business relationships should say, have you in the past 12 months have had any relationship with the city? I think it has to be something that has to do with the city. I think that suggestion of getting more items in there is necessary. I'm really right in the middle as to should we bring the community panel back or not. I feel strongly about that. I think that another eye on the process is not a bad idea. GMA said that they're they believe that it's a good idea. Now, I don't know, now that they said this, should we recall the fire department one as well? Is that what they're recommending that we would do now? If they're saying no, then that's kind of not being fair to the process, because if it's good for the fire, then why isn't it good for the police if we've already had a process? So I'm not sure what the answer is, but let me hear my colleagues and I'll make a decision at that point.
Let me comment on that. If you recall, when we voted on the police and also the fire bulletin where we excluded the community panel, we had assurances from staff that this was a one-time deal, and that if it didn't work or there was a problem, we weren't locked into having the community panel taken off all future exams. So to me, this is a case where it didn't work. That's why we're sitting here. That's why Matt canceled the exam. Something didn't work. And so I don't have any reservation about going back to the old system because staff said we could do that. And as far as the fire exam goes, that's water under the bridge. And we've had no problems with that one. That worked out fine, I'm assuming. So I have no problem with that. But I don't think we're locked in because we originally said you could do away with it. And now we're saying you have to put it back in because that was the option we had when we made the original decision. Also, Commissioner Gazarian brings up some good points about getting complaints or concerns from people that have taken exams with the community panel. And I'm a product of the civil service system. I went through it with the city of LA for many, many years. And so I've had a lot of experience in that area of taking exams with both community panels and without them. And what I found over the years is that the ones that you get the complaints from, the ones that say it's not good, are the ones that finish at the bottom of the list. And you never hear a complaint from someone about a community panel that did well and finished, got number 1 or 2 or 3. So I don't put much credence in the fact that we get complaints that the community panel is not working, because it depends where the complaint is coming from. And in my opinion, again, based on my experience with it, it adds another level of fairness or taking away any bias, because you're dealing with people in the community, you're dealing with professionals, and it creates, to me, a much more level playing field than just having the one panel at this level. And so that's where I'm coming from on that. When we considered this for both the police and fire, I spoke against it. And I, too, and I certainly echo Mr. Manukian's comments about Chief Castro. I have more respect for him than you can imagine. He's doing a fantastic job. And, I know that Scott Ochoa likes to use sayings, but you certainly don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I don't want to cast any aspersions or cripple the chief's ability to run the department the way he needs to run it by throwing in this extra step. I feel that in fairness, and for me to have a peace of mind that it's truly a fair exam, that needs to be in there.
When you have a moment, I'd like to address everything you're saying.
Well, I'm sure, I'll give you a chance. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from. And so I started to say that I was convinced by my colleagues on the fire and police that be the best way to go. But as far as I'm concerned, in this one, it didn't work, and I'd like to see it put back in.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Devine, you say it's water under the bridge, that the fire department's captain's exam took place. The battalion chief took place the way it did. But to me, to go on a path as charted by you and suggested by you is really a river runneth over. And I'll tell you why. It's a river runneth over because I believe you are getting caught up with the letter of our decision versus the spirit of our decision. The spirit of our decision, the one-time deal that we talked about just doing this with the outside panel, is very much alive, because we have an individual who, after engaging in a communication, lo and behold, did that which none of us would have expected someone in that position to be doing, to take ownership of it, to take ownership of that communication. That is throwing the baby with the bathwater, to disregard such larger-than-life humanity and humility, to take ownership of a shortcoming, of an error in judgment, or a mistake, or a wrong move, if you will. And to say, well, we gave it a shot that didn't work. And to now make it work, to bring a community panel, which by your long, distinguished experience, you believe that it serves a purpose, and those who complain, this is how I understood you, Chair Devine, they are complaining because they're sour grapes because they didn't get the promotion. But I know in this city, and I dare say so do you, so does other members of the commission, those who have been promoted, who did not deserve to be promoted, who were unworthy of the promotions they got, and they got those promotions because of the citizen panel doing their Mickey Mousing in the past. What about those? I'm not so concerned about those who didn't get promoted. What about those who did get promoted, who were not really promotion-worthy people, promotability-wise deserving? So I think the community panel time to be reintroduced is premature, because this system, this spirit of our allowance has not run its course yet. And I think it ought to run its course. It ought to run its course with the safety measures that you've put in place. The added layer, to me, mark my words, if we go down that path, it's going to come back to bite us.
One more comment that I quickly had. As a matter of fact, I was a community panel member in the past on, happened to be a captain's exam. And honestly, I was not qualified to be there. Because the questions that are asked, and it all boils down to, do you know this person? Do you know what I'm saying? I, on a personal experience, was not qualified to be there on that panel. This is going back maybe 15, 20 years ago. But I was a community member. I still, at the end of the day, do not know this person. He might interview well, but I, as a police captain, I don't know what his real, I mean, I think, again, I want to reiterate, my opinion, the best person that knows how to run that department is the chief. And the process of having the professional panel who knows the job, who knows the process, and will ask the right questions. But I think those safeguards that you recommended, I always thought they were there to begin with. Honestly, I would have automatically assumed that the conflict of interest issues should, it's a no-brainer. But again, the process worked, in my opinion, and I agree with Commissioner Gazarian and the other fellow commissioners. The process worked. You know, it was caught. Let's give it a chance. If for any other reason this issue comes up, then we can revisit it. But I'm completely against a community panel.
Okay, I think I can count votes as well as anyone else on the dais. I think to short circuit this and get on with the business, I'm going to pass the gavel to the vice chair. I'm going to make two motions, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay.
The first.
What do you want me to do with this?
You're now chair, so
be careful what you give me.
So you're asking me to make a motion.
Make a motion.
I will make a motion. I will make the first motion I will make would be to have the new exam given with the reinstatement of the community panel. Do I have a second on that?
I second that.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Can I wait?
This is for the community panel, right?
I understand. Can I wait? No.
Wait for what?
for the other votes?
Do you need further discussion?
Undecided, huh?
Do you have?
Put the second one first.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
I'm
can
gonna
I make?
I thought I have the gavel. Hold on a second.
Chair,
Yes,
can you,
sir.
I'd like to,
Amend your motion?
well, yes, I'd like
Okay,
to.
go. Amend your motion.
Thank you. I will amend the motion. I will delete that motion I just made for now, so you can wait. And I will move that the three other safeguards that I mentioned, and I think Mr. Doyle has written them down, unless you want me to repeat them.
I'd need you to repeat them at some point.
The safeguards.
So just so we can keep the process straight, you'd made a motion, there was a second. You've now withdrawn that motion, and the maker of the second, I'm assuming, agrees with withdrawing the motion at this time. You'd now like to make a different motion, and in that motion, you'd like to cover the other three items that you had discussed.
Yes.
Which specifically included the proctor, the HR director's authority to be the sole decision maker in selecting the panel, or rather the final decision maker in selecting the panel, and then making certain amendments to the conflict of interest questionnaire.
That's correct, thank you. That's
Do we have a second?
That's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that. She'll second it.
We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Yes.
Commissioner Gazarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Devine?
Yes.
He's not the chair.
I'm not the chair.
right now.
Okay, yes. Now I will make my second motion, which...
Mr. Chair, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry. When you make this motion, can you clarify, are you talking about exclusively community panel or what has been done previously, the community/internal panel?
The one that was previously done, the one that was been in the exam for how many years? Community/internal.
Okay.
Okay, my second motion will be to reinstate the community panel.
Before you do that, does anyone else want to make a motion to keep it? Before he might have
to keep what?
Keep the process that we had previously.
That's what he was making.
But you're making a motion to change it now, correct? To the community.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm confused.
You said we can count
I
votes.
see. I see what you.
Hold on.
Then we don't have to go there.
So your motion is to revert back to what was previously community/internal
panel,
right? That's what.
You sure you don't want to let me make a motion in advance of that?
Okay, Mr. Chair, why don't we let another motion, because then your motion might be moot when Mr. Gazarian makes his motion.
Okay.
Then you don't have to make it, so you can take the gavel back maybe and have Mr. Gazarian said that he wanted to make a motion.
Okay.
You guys are confusing me.
No,
I'm not giving it back. I don't want this job anymore.
Okay. Mr. Gazarian, you'd like to make a motion?
My motion is to leave the police chief captain testing process in place with the added safeguards that were just passed by motion by Chair.
Second. I second that motion.
Roll call.
Commissioner Yakubian?
You know, I am undecided. I cannot decide between the community panel and the process as is. And frankly, I was not here during that meeting where this decision was made, and therefore not privy to the issues that I've heard about just colloquially today on the community panel. So I'm going to abstain.
Okay, hold on. Let me just clarify this. Mr. Gubin abstains, and it's 2-on-2. Then the previous process stays because there's nothing to change that process.
That would be correct unless there's a different motion that's introduced and a new vote is taken and in fact does change.
Let's finish this process of the voting. Motion and a second, and we were voting, right? Is that what we were doing?
Commissioner Gazarian?
It's my motion.
Yeah.
Well, there's an abstention. We're making.
No, it's your motion.
She's continuing the roll call. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
She's continuing the roll call.
You made a motion. Commissioner Yakubian abstained.
Yes, it's my motion. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have to say yes to my own motion. That's what I meant. It's my
Commissioner
motion.
Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Gazarian?
Yes.
Chair Devine?
No. You forgot Commissioner Abkarian.
You said Gazarian twice, so
Oh,
you're
I'm
looking
sorry.
for Commissioner
Commissioner
Abkarian.
So you're not going to make, you're going to abstain on both motions, right? Because you weren't here.
This is my motion still.
It's just one motion right now.
I say no.
So the motion fails because it did not receive a majority vote.
Okay.
Now, the next question would be, are there any other motions? And if not, then we would have concluded with this item, assuming there's no other discussion.
Well, unless in the last 30 seconds, my colleague to my right came down with some guided light from above and is now going to be ready to vote, I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm
You could try it.
going to ask her.
Sure.
If the reverse motion is made, if I make the motion where we include the community panel in the new exam, will you still abstain, or will you be able to vote one way or another on that?
Well, my issue actually is with that combination community slash internal, I guess, personnel being on that same board, because I can see how that could potentially be problematic, because we're assuming that the people who are the internal people would know some of the candidates. It wouldn't be impartial, so I fail to see how that would serve as any sort of a check and balance. That's my issue. So perhaps if we, and I don't even know.
You would have voted for my motion then, based on your explanation.
No, but if we have a community
I think
panel,
she's saying that we should have just a
people
community
only,
panel
sure,
only.
then maybe, GMA would be more amenable to that, and thinking that it's, I mean, it's not, for me, it's not just whether or not it's fair. Obviously, that's the most important, but it's also the perception of whether or not it's fair. And so I think that maybe that would give more of a perception that it's fair if it's just random people from the community. But again, I mean, I'm uncomfortable because I wasn't here during that one meeting, and I certainly can see a problem with having internal personnel on the community panel board. So I would not vote for that.
Okay, Mr. Chair, just to put this to rest, because it seems like I know where it's going, I'm going to go ahead and withdraw my previous no motion to the previous motion and change that to a yes motion.
Yes vote, you mean?
To yes to just oral panel only, the previous motion. Can I do that? Or do we need a new motion on that?
I think just to be on the.
I'm just going to renew the motion.
I think to be on the safe side, you may want to call the motion again, make the motion again, have the second.
I'm renewing my motion to have the examination for the police captain be administered in the manner that was previously agreed upon, in addition to the safeguards that were moved and seconded and passed this evening, as set forth by Chair Devine.
I second that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Yakubian?
I abstain.
Commissioner Gazarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Devine?
No. That concludes it then.
All right, what else?
What is the next item, please?
Civil Service Commission staff comments.
Staff comments?
Happy holidays.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to wish you done?
No, yeah.
Wish everyone happy holidays. I guess we won't be meeting here until next year sometime. And I also want to express a special thanks and appreciation to Matt Doyle and his staff for the great service they provided for this commission during the past year. We probably don't all realize the amount of backroom work that goes on to put on one of these meetings, and the research and the work they do, and especially Anahid and Angela, who have sat with this commission and provided us with all the information. Thank you very much. You're doing a great job, and Angela, we're going to miss you. But now that you're a supervisor and leader, why we realize that we don't rate your rank up here. But anyway, we do appreciate what you've done, and thanks to your staff and to you, Matt, for doing that.
And Rusquan, and
Steve,
and
as much as we,
Mania, and Amy, and everyone else. If you're going to name names, name them all.
I think we're going to include Steve on that. Oh, there he is.
Russ, no matter what they say, we still love you.
Anyway, with that, we will adjourn. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.